We have here two experts in urbanization, a public official, Minna, and a business leader, Thierry, because collaboration between the public and private sectors is critical to success in new urban projects. Minna Arve, you're the mayor of Turku in Finland and the ICLE vice president on the Global Executive Committee in the European Region seat. Thierry Mallet, you're the CEO of Transdev. Transdev is a world leader in public transportation, moving millions of passengers around every day in various modes of transport. Thierry, I'm going to start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about Transdev and give us an example of a project that illustrates Transdev's work in creating sustainable and resilient cities?
Thank you, Kristen, and thank you for the invitation today. Transdev, in a few words, it's 100,000 people in 20 countries that help 12 billion people move every day. That's the business of Transdev. Our business is daily mobility, is empower freedom to move thanks to solutions that serve the common good. And one good example of what we have done recently regarding sustainability, because a lot of people speak about clean mobility. Of course, there is a development of new solutions, and I know that we will cover that later on, and how we go further, how we serve places where there is no public transport today. But one of the objectives is to have clean public transport. And one good example of what we can achieve has been the launch last year of a fleet of 400 electrical buses in Bogota. It was the first 400 electrical buses in Bogota. We were able to do it from scratch. And we did that in 1 year. Between the date it was decided and the date we started operating the 400 buses, we did invest. It was an investment of 150 million. We did build a yard of 4,000 square meters in order to be able to keep all the buses, charge them. And we did have to build the buses as well. We did that getting the batteries, of course, from China, but we did the assembly of the buses locally, so the work would remain in the place where we were, and we've been able to do that. And we are trying to do that all around the world, not only in Europe, it's happening as well in Latin America. That's a good news. And at this beginning of the year, we also started operation of electrical buses in Santiago, in Chile, with 250 electrical buses. So it shows that it's happening everywhere. And today, at the end of this year, we'll have a fleet of more than 3,000 electrical buses all around the world, which shows that it is feasible to move from classical thermal engines to electrical buses, especially in inner cities. Suburbs is a different topic, and beyond suburbs is another topic. But the type of example, while collaborating with public authorities, with public transit agencies, we can bring solutions that we have developed in other countries, because this story of electrical started more than almost 10 years ago in the Netherlands with a fleet of 40 electrical buses in Eindhoven, and from then we've been able to grow, to understand, to design solutions, to improve on them, to integrate what comes every year with new solutions in order to be able to do this type of changes.
Thank you. So there we have an example of electric buses in Southern America mainly, but you mentioned that sort of global also. Let's move to Northern Europe now, Minna. Turku, if I've understood correctly, it's a very old city. Is it one of the oldest cities in Finland? Your city is steeped in history. Can you tell us a little bit about what Turku is like today and give us an example of a recent or ongoing project that you have to make your city more sustainable and more resilient?
Thank you. I would be more than delighted to tell you about Turku just in a few seconds, but let me start by stating a couple of words about cities and the climate work. Less than 10 years ago, the Paris Agreement was agreed here in Paris together with the national governments and states. And how it's going? We already now know that we are not going to meet the 1.5 degree. And that's why I keep saying that it's important to take cities on board, starting from those big agreements where we are promising our residents, our citizens, that we are going to deliver you a better world and a better future. And why is that? Because in cities, we know what to do. We know how to take our residents on board. We know how to take our businesses on board, other stakeholders on board. And we know how to do it in justice way. And in Turku, we have really done it. So Turku is really the oldest city in Finland, but I tend to keep my eye in the future because that's more interesting. And one of the things that we have really been doing is the climate work. We have already been reducing our emissions by nearly 60% from the 1990 levels. And we are going to be a carbon neutral city by 2029, which is the year when we are celebrating our 800 years anniversary. So we are having, anniversary for our residents to be carbon neutral city and climate positive thereafter. And what have we then done? So we have invested more than 500 million euros already by now to the transformation, the energy system to be more sustainable and based on renewables. And we are going to invest a lot more. We have calculated our investments for the next coming 4 years, taking consideration not only the city, but all the city-owned companies. Our investments totally are nearly 1.5 billion euros, and 1.3 billion euros out of those are supporting our climate targets. So that's kind of power that cities can have when they are using their investments in the right way and in a wise way. So we have really been investing to sustainable energy, and that's the biggest achievement that we have done. And I'll give you one example, which is not only about the energy, but it's also about the saving our nature. It's about energy, and then it's about circularity. And it's that we based a new wastewater management plant in Turku 2009. So that was the biggest thing that we have done for our archipelago sea. We are located by the sea, and there is one of the biggest archipelagos in the world surrounded. So we are saving our sea by having a good wastewater management, naturally. We have invested, therefore, a couple of heating pumps, taking the heat out from the wastewater. So we are actually using the wastewater for energy. And its total amount is about 10% for the residents of Turku are getting their district heating powered by wastewater. So, and in the end, there is a result, there's a sludge coming out of that process. And from that sludge, you can do biogas. So actually, you have the whole kind of 3 elements, what are the most important things for the future. You take care of your nature, you take care of your climate, and you make it in a sustainable way by circularity.
Thank you.
That's what we are doing in cities.
That's a fine example, thank you, Minna, and I think that just goes to show also some of the complexities that cities have to consider when dealing with these solutions, because it's often not just one thing that you have to build in, it's the entire chain, the entire ecosystem that's going on here. I want to think about that connectivity and continue on to my next question, which is about collaboration, the focus of our panel here. Because collaboration with all stakeholders in the city is key to designing new solutions that actually work, that are successful, and that are sustainable and resilient, not just in the cities, but also in that surrounding area. Minna, you mentioned you're on the coast, you have all of these islands. Thierry, you and I were chatting beforehand, and you were telling me about a project in Bordeaux, here in France. Can you tell us about how you're collaborating with different partners to bring about a new solution?
Yes, I mentioned before the fact that we were transitioning from diesel to electrical, but it's not the biggest challenge. When we look at the biggest challenge today when it comes to transportation, is the fact that today it's a place where emissions have been going on. It's a place where 30% of the emissions are coming from transportation, half of it from individual cars. And we see that even in cities like France, 83% of the daily kilometers, for 80% of the daily kilometers, people are using cars and not public transport. Probably a little bit higher in Paris, but on average, most of the kilometers are done by cars. What we see today is that we have to deliver better solutions outside of the city centers. In city centers, we've done a very good job with metro, with buses, with trams, in order to help people. But when it comes to the suburbs and beyond the suburbs, and we need to look at the catchment area. The catchment area starts where you live and where you work. And what you realize for a city like Bordeaux, that the size of the catchment area, it's about 50 kilometers when you look at people living and working in the city center. And second, what you realize is that 1/3 of the people are basically living outside the greater Bordeaux with no service today. So you need to design service in those low density areas in order for people to be able to give up their car, not really give it up, but use it less, because you will never be able to give it. And what we have done in the case of Bordeaux, it's between Créon, which is a small city 30 kilometers away from Bordeaux. It's a coach express line. It's a coach line that runs every day from 6 in the morning until 10 at night, every 15 minutes in the morning, in the peak hours, half an hour during the middays. And from the start, we've been able to have more than 1,000 people on board every day. It has been a success. People have been able to give up their cars. There is only 4 stops, which means that people still need their car to go to the parking lot, to put their vehicles and to get on the bus. But it's a very efficient solution. On average, people are basically saving 200 euros per month of gas, much less emission, and it's a very good solution to give up. And we were able to implement it in 6 months. And it was not easy to do because it was easy to do technically, but it involved the city of Bordeaux, it involved the region, which is managing, it involves also the department in France, the French department, which is managing the roads. Because of the success, now they are not, at the beginning we were just running the bus or the coaches at the same speed as a car. Today, because it's such a big success, there will be dedicated priorities for roundabouts, which will allow the travel time of, instead of being 55 minutes, of being 40 minutes. And this priority will be also available for car sharing. That's the type of solution that we need to involve in order to be able to reduce the footprint. Of course, there is a rail, which is also a solution, but the rail will take time, will take 10 years, big investment. We have very simple solution. Today, it's a diesel buses, but with the diesel buses, we already achieved a reduction of 90% of the emission. If we were to go for electrical buses, it would be 95, so even better. But with very simple solution, we can already improve significantly with cooperation the life of the people, protect their acquisitive power because it means less cost to go to work every day. Also, it's coaches with Wi-Fi. You have a seat, you can work, you can sleep. So it's also time given back to you rather than being in your car.
And I think that's also a great example, not just of the collaboration, as you said, all of the actors that come together, but that sometimes you don't need to go out and build something new, like a rail network that would take decades, as you say, but actually see how you can pull all these different actors together to put something into place rapidly. Was it 6 months that you said?
It took 6 months from the decision to the end, and there will be more lines like that. It's a very good example that exists around Madrid. The Paris region is going to do the same, and more lines are to open in the border regions, and other regions are looking at that because it can be a very fast solution. And with a low emission zone, we need to find solution for people living in the suburbs, especially in the greater area of the cities, to be able to get into the center of the city and not be forbidden to go because they don't have the right car.
Thank you. Thank you, Thierry. Minna, I know that Turku is steeped in maritime history, and that's still quite a big part of the industry there for you. This very old industry that needs to clean up and become a cleaner industry, but that you've also got 6 universities in your city that are working on research and innovation, new projects. So how are you collaborating with businesses and these different types of businesses? You've got a huge range of stakeholders in your city.
Yes, and I think it's very important to work strategically, systemically, and organized way together with businesses, together with universities and other stakeholders, other actors, and of course, not to forget, with our residents. And how we do that, I'll give you 3 examples, for instance. We have a business development company called Turku Science Park, where we actually have in the board, there are representatives of all universities, so or actually 3 of them is having directors or principals sitting in the board. I'm personally there and our deputy mayors, and then we also have the representatives of our Chamber of Commerce, so have companies directly working together. So that's the platform for many kind of business development projects, not only projects, but it's a strategic way to thinking. The second example is that we have Turku Urban Research Program together with 2 of universities, Turku University and APOPO Academy University, which is the Swedish-speaking university in Turku and our city. And we actually find all kind of research areas what comes to the city planning and city development. So they will deliver the research for our decision making so that we can do our decision making based on science and facts and research. And the third example is coming to this maritime industry and shipbuilding. We indeed have an old shipyard in Turku. It's already been there for several hundred years, and nowadays it's Meyer shipyard owned by the German company Meyer, and they are doing the biggest cruisers in the world. At the moment, there is the biggest cruiser in the world will be delivered in December, and it's basically a huge amusement park and city on a kind of ship. And that's the very big question, how to do this in sustainable way and how to do the whole maritime sector and shipbuilding ecosystem to be carbon neutral. And they are working together with our universities and also Business Finland, so our national government, for that how we will make those cruisers to be carbon neutral and how we will make the whole ecosystem of building those ships to be carbon neutral by 2030. So it's quite ambitious goal, but I think we are heading over there, and that's also very important for the whole business because it's, as you mentioned, there is challenges regardless the whole business kind of idea, and that's why they need to do a lot of work, and we need to be competitive in that too.
Indeed, we do need to, in part of creating sustainable and resilient cities is also creating the business that comes in those cities and helps them survive. But we can't just focus on that. I want to talk about inclusivity and accessibility, because we can create the most resilient and sustainable cities, but if people and everyone is not able to use them, we haven't fulfilled our goals and objectives. So I have a question to you both. We need to ensure sustainability strategies take everyone's needs into account. How to manage to combine sustainability and inclusivity? I know, Minna, you've got some examples. Can you want to tell us about one or two of the examples that you're using in Turkey, please?
Yes, I think it's, as I told you a couple of times already, so it's very, very important to have residents on board as well. And it's about social justice, it's about transformation, it's about how we actually, because the most of the consumption is done actually by human choices, so unless people are actually willing to do those choices in their everyday life, so nothing is going to happen anyway, even though we would do whatever. So we need people to be there. So I have two examples what we have worked, and the other one is something which is very permanent, and it's also in Finland in all municipalities. We have a youth council, which is elected from each school. They elect their own member to the youth council, and youth council has not only presence in our city council, but they also have allowance to speak up in our city council, and also in all committees which are in the city. So they actually do have power to speak up together with us who are taking the responsibility for the decision makers, as decision makers, and they also have a small budget for themselves, so what they can use. And they are very ambitious in climate-wise as well, and they are really challenging us, and I think it's really good.
I love this example of you bringing in youth and youth council, because not just it's important that they have a seat at the table, but also if you're engaging them in their cities at that age, then hopefully they will remain engaged throughout the rest of their lives in your cities. In the time remaining, I want to turn to Thierry and also ask you about inclusivity and what strategies are you using? Can you give us an example of how you've managed to combine sustainability and inclusivity?
I would like to mention an example we are very proud of. It's not our idea, but it was the idea of the city of Bogota again. I will take you back to Bogota again. The city of Bogota is a flat area surrounded by mountains. All the normal development have happened in the flat part of the city, and of course on all the mountains you've got all those very informal settlements of people who've built their own house without any permitting, but it's there, it's a very important part of the population, and there is no streets because you're along the mountain and people have just been putting their house nearby, one near the others, so no way you can get even a car into that, even less a bus. And it took people 45 to 50 minutes to go down from this hill to be able to access the city. And the very good idea of the city of Bogota was to install in those population, and it's part Ciudad Bolivar in Bogota, a cable car, like the one used at the ski resort, which could access into the place Now it takes you 15 minutes to go from the top with different stations to the main bus station directly with those cable cars. Those cable cars were respected when there were riots in the city. A lot of things have been attacked, but not the cable cars, because people value them very much. Every pylon has been the opportunity to do a school, to organize a few settlements around, to open a shop, even a bank, install itself in that part, which was a place nobody wanted to go to, because it was considered to be very dangerous. And today, it's more than 23,000 people every day that take the cable car from this place to go down to the city. And that's a very good way to connect with something which is normally used for rich people everywhere in the world, to connect people in a poor settlement. And they have the plan to develop other type of thing like that, so they can connect all those neighborhoods of the city with the city centers and the big network of buses and tomorrow metro in the city of Bogota.
Thank you. In the couple of minutes that we have left, I do want to pick your brains, and because we're in the audience here, we have mayors from around the globe, we have urban planners, we have community groups, and our focus here is collaboration. What advice would you give, just in 1 or 2 minutes, to others seeking to collaborate to build sustainable, resilient cities? How do you build those collaborations and make them solid?
I think it's about every mayor in the world, they know that without residents, it's not going to happen. So you need the residents, and then you need the other stakeholders. You collect them on the board, and then you set the goals, and then you just take into action. And I think it's a very practical level. The city level is so practical. You face your residents every time, every day. You are accountable for them. You cannot go hiding somewhere unless you are not going to survive anymore as a mayor. So that's very important.
So interaction with your residents, your citizens. Thierry, do you have a piece of advice?
One advice is to think big. The reality of the life today is that people don't happen to be living in the city where they work. And today, when you look at the world we are in, we need to think catchment area. Mobility is not, people are not moving for the pleasure of moving. They move to go from the house to the work. And more than 50% of the kilometer every day is going from your house to the work. So it's very important to have a very good idea how people are living, how they behave. Of course, we can start thinking cities that will be more sustainable with less mobility, because one answer to mobility is, of course, proximity. But it's going to take 20 years. Of course, we need to think about it today, but we need to think about what are the people's needs, and to be sure that we have around the table all the people able to influence, all the mayors, all the different levels with the same target. Sometimes you're going to be serving people who don't vote for you, but who are working in your city, or people who are not, who are voting for you but not working there. So it's very important to think big and the right scale, because we are not going to be able to solve the solution without taking into account the reality of the world and where people are moving, because they will not be able to change if we don't bring the right solution at the right scale.